Yes, I've been framed. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That would be so sad if we recorded everything and we're like, he's not.
I'm off
He's
frame.
like a voice off the frame. Oh my God, that's the God voice. I'm like,
If you ever
God
seen Home
voice.
Improvement, I'm like the neighbor. Like the side of my face.
yes. Bienvenidos. I am so excited to be here today. As you can tell, there's a different setup today. It's not my face in a little box with somebody else's face in a little box. We're actually here in my home in the living room with two amazing, talented people that I cannot wait to share with you. If you've been thinking about breaking free, creating something that's been on your heart for a long time, if you've been thinking about making a film, writing a play, acting in something, stay tuned because we're going to share River City stories and the stories of two of my awesome friends. We have Paul Hood here and we have Wallace McKelvey, and they are the creators of River City Stories, which I'm really fortunate to be performing in. Yes, I can't wait. And so just stay tuned. And before we actually get into it, I do want you to introduce yourselves. Yeah, so however that goes, como sea.
Wallace, you can.
Yeah.
All right. I'll keep it simple. I'm Wallace McKelvey. I'm a journalist and filmmaker and co-parent of this thing called River City Stories,
Yes.
with my compadre.
Mr. Paul Hood. I'm a writer, playwright, screenwriter, actor, and yes, I can't wait to share with you guys the project we've been working on for many years now. And so yeah. Thank you for having us today.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. No se vayan a ningún lado. Please share this with folks. I know so many of you have reached out to me. You've told me that you've been wanting to create a podcast, wanting to create a film, wanting to create something, and this is the conversation to listen to. So, gracias. Let's begin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, my beloved friends, let's talk. I want to talk a little bit about your individual journeys.
Okay.
I want to talk about River City Stories. Tell me a little bit about how you came to be the playwright that you are. It's specifically also here, right, in Harrisburg, or your story.
Well, it's weird because when I was in 10th grade, I've told this story before, but I'll try to, give you the, quick synopsis. I struggled. I had a really pretty debilitating learning disability when I was in school. And it is centered around math. And so one day I was in an algebra class and I was like, all right, I gotta figure out how I can get out of this. So I wrote a letter to my 10th grade algebra teacher, and she read the letter and she came to me and she was like, you might struggle with math, but writing is something you're pretty gifted in. So I didn't realize it then, as a 10th grader, you're like, oh yeah, cool. All right, but can I get out of here? So I never really thought about writing seriously. I mean, I would tinker here and there and, journal, and then journals turned into poetry. Poetry turned into short stories turned into plays, and actually screenplays. And then I found out that my real strength was writing for the stage, as well as screenwriting, but screenwriting is a different animal, so I had to really learn that craft. But writing plays became my strength. So that's basically how my journey started. It was accidental. I'm really glad. I wish I could reconnect with that teacher, and I don't remember her name. That's what really kills me. But I'll never forget that. That launched me and gave me a lot of confidence. So
I love that. And before we go on to Wallace, my question is, or my observation is that, but you kept tinkering. Mm-hmm. What was the thing that you feel inspired you to continue, right? Because there's so many things we could try, but there's something that keeps bringing you back. So what do you think?
There were these little successes I'd have. I published my first short story fairly young. I was in my 20s. Some people don't publish until they're in their 30s and 40s. Sometimes they're 50s.
Right.
It's funny though, when I published my first short story in a magazine, I didn't write again for like 5 years.
Right.
Like I just stopped doing it. You would think, oh, that would have launched me into like this whole other area of like focus. But I think I let life
Right.
take hold of me, which I'm glad I kind of did that, because it kind of like seeped into my work for theater. And a lot of my plays deal with a lot of those things I was battling at that time. So, but yeah, I just, it kept me sane because I was having a tough time. So
I love that.
writing saved my life. Like, I know that sounds corny,
No,
but
it's not. It's
it
true.
really did. It really saved me. So, that's why I'm here with you guys.
I love that. Having an area of self-expression, right?
Yeah.
Like sharing our voice, sharing our stories.
Yes.
So I love that.
Not being afraid of that,
And we're going to get into that too,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of fear around it.
Yeah,
Because
it's a lot.
right.
Yeah.
So Wallace, how did you become a journalist, a filmmaker?
Much like Paul, it was like a long and winding road. So I'll try to give you the shortcut version of it. When I was a kid, I just loved writing, and some of the best things that some of the assignments that I most loved to do. I was that kid in second grade when, the assignment was to write a short story, and it was like 2 pages. Well, I would turn in like 15. It's just like, and some of my early teachers really did recognize that and saw that in me. And journalism and writing, all of it for me was the same. It's all storytelling, regardless of what the medium is. Because I also remember when I was in like 4th grade, I was writing for the student newspaper, which back then it was like a newsletter. It wasn't really a news, I was asking like tough questions. I was asking about like why our counseling staff was so short, and like that was just what I was doing. I was a curious kid, to the extent that like sometimes I'd make adults uncomfortable with some of the questions I would ask. And then, the older I got, and I had a lot of stuff going on at home, which I don't know that we want to get into all of it, but, I kind of ebbed and flowed, so I'd go through periods where I'd be really creative, much like Paul, and I'd be writing a lot of stuff. And then I'd go through fallow periods where I was dealing with the rest of life, which I think is something that's true for almost every creative.
Yeah.
No matter what their background is, no matter what their life circumstances, you have those struggles along the way where progress is never just a straight line up and to the right. You follow lots of kind of detours along the way. And then in journalism kind of felt like a way that I could make money by telling stories. It felt for me sustainable because, I grew up in a trailer park, and, the areas where I could get scholarships to go to college, writing seemed like the ticket out. For some people it's athletics.
Right.
For some people it's STEM, the sciences. I don't think there's one best, pathway for any of us to take. For me it was, I have this talent. People recognize it. And so I just used it and used it and used it. And for me, journalism was a great way. It wasn't so heady like film. I looked at film, and I was smart enough even as a high schooler, as much as I loved movies and I wanted to tell fictional stories. I was like, well, there's lots of aspiring novelists, and there's lots of aspiring filmmakers, and there's lots of aspiring poets, and a lot of them are starving. Journalism, however, is, I for some reason I saw that as a way for me to continue that journey and have something to fall back on. So I went to school for journalism, and I didn't kind of circle back to filmmaking until after I'd already been established as a reporter. I started doing the local VidJam 48-hour film competitions in 2019.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But at that point, I was already like working as an investigative reporter and covering the State House and all the other things.
Yeah, I love your story too, because you pointed out how we have these fallow periods. We have the times where we're very creative. And as creatives, sometimes I think we might feel ashamed that we're not continuously productive because society pushes that on us. But we also need those times where we're quiet, because we're integrating, like you said, we're integrating and you were going through certain things and then you were able to put in your writing. Yeah. And you needed to establish yourself too and have your business. Like I was doing my business on the side for free and like doing things that I loved while I had like a regular job. Yeah. And those are great things. So when did you two meet? How did River City Stories come about? What is the River City Stories? Yeah.
Wow. River City Stories is it's a collection of stories centered around the people that inhabit this great city of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Basically, Wallace and I got together, and it was during COVID, and so we had plenty of time to sit down, and we just talked. We really didn't, have a plan per se, but we knew we had things we wanted to talk about and share with people, and we wanted to do it in a way that wasn't insulting but not false.
Right.
You know what I mean? We wanted to peel back the layers on, things that make Harrisburg what Harrisburg is. It's a city that's flawed, but then it's a city that's beautiful, has beautiful people, and we wanted to show that. So we just sat and talked, and then I think later is when we started to get a little bit of a structure to it, and then we started the writing process, and I'll let Wallace tell you a little bit about how that worked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love it because it started so organically. Mm-hmm. Like we had known each other for a number of years. Right. Me being a reporter and you being in the arts in Harrisburg as an actor and a playwright. And we kept on talking about, we should work together sometime. We should work together sometime, yada, yada. And you know how that goes. You can talk about, we're going to get together sometime. Yeah. And then it never happens.
It never happens.
Well, COVID happened, and like suddenly both of our busy schedules were wiped clean. Mm-hmm. And what happened is we met around my fire pit. Mm. And you've been to my fire pit a few times. You remember that kind of atmosphere. Mm-hmm. I just socially distanced, I would invite my friends over and we'd just kick back a couple beers around the fire pit. So we'd meet there in Midtown, or we'd meet on your porch. At the time you lived in Allison Hill, off of State Street. And we would just talk for hours and hours and hours without there being really an objective at the beginning. Like the beginning, we didn't have any idea this would become a film. Mm-hmm. We were just talking about stuff that was happening, stuff that we had experienced, stuff that I had covered, stuff that you had seen and gossiped about, that kind of stuff. And then I don't exactly remember how it happened, but we started, once we had been doing this for a period of time, we were like, well, why don't we write this down?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Did I suggest it?
I think we had, all right, so it was a weird thing where we had these meetups, and we, I can't remember if the kick in the butt moment was the one meeting we had at HMAC.
Well, the kick in the butt moment happened after we'd been writing.
We had been writing, yes. So we had a bunch of stories already written, and there was a long stretch of time before we got back together again, and we were like, let's stop screwing around and get to work. The cats are fighting.
I know.
Well, they're playing.
Yes, the cats are playing. He was nibbling on my toe, and I was trying not to scream. I was like, let me not interrupt. He went there.
But yeah, so we just decided, if we're going to do this, let's do it. And so Wallace did a good job of getting the work on the schedule and making a really nice template for us to work, which we still use today. So we started reaching out to our actor friends, and we, gathered an amazing group of people. So many amazing local actors: Aaron Bomar, Erica Eberly,
Sharia Ben.
Sharia Ben, yes. Yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, we
Paul Hood.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Wallace McKelvey, because you're in it too.
Yeah. We're all in this together.
It's really great to go to a movie and be like, those are my friends. Those are my friends.
So we just decided to, get to work. And, once we started, the first table read we had was a really awesome moment, because that's when you find out if stuff works, through a table read. And Wallace and I had this moment, and this is rare, so don't get too excited. We looked at each other and we were like, yo, this is really good. We just...
And also there's a moment of validation too, because at that first table read, we had invited some of the best actors that we knew in Harrisburg, because we were like, I would love to work with this person, but I don't want to ask them to commit for what might be a long process of filming it. So how about y'all come over? I'll feed you. That's one of my love languages. I like to feed people. So I made lasagna or something, and we fed people, and in exchange for food and camaraderie, they read the scripts that we had written without any more commitment than that. And it was really validating, number one, to hear what we had written out loud.
Yes.
Because that tells you whether it's good or not. But also, like, Sharia Ben was there, and she was one of those people who was like, this is great.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh, okay, this is actually, this can be something.
Yeah, and to hear her say that is like it was just really encouraging. So we knew we had something great, and we were like, all right, we cannot sit on this, and we got to work. So,
yeah. And of course, we're still working. Because in some ways, I love the way that we're doing this, because it builds in time. We aren't shooting it like a Hollywood production, because quite frankly, we're not a Hollywood production.
No.
We're a couple of guys who have day jobs. Paul works as an educator in one of our school districts. I now am the managing editor of a daily newspaper. And so we have day jobs that require a lot from us and take a lot of energy. So the way we work it is we schedule shoots and table reads and other things around our existing schedule. So it's a lot of like shoots at night in the middle of the week, or a weekend here, a weekend there.
Yeah.
And
8-hour weekend, 8 hours Saturdays and Sundays, sometimes it's 4 hours.
Or sometimes it's like 10 hours.
10 hours, yeah.
And we also work around the schedules of our actors, which you've gotten a little taste of. Because you already had a role, and you have more that we're about to shoot.
Yes. So excited. Shogo was telling me, she's like, girl, you don't understand. For like a 2-minute thing, she's like, so many. I'm just like, I know. So it's going to be exciting. I cannot wait to share all of it with all of you. I love... it feels like not only do you both have chemistry, and we could see it, we could feel it, but you also have faith in the step by step, because I think we're all so pressured in this world. What's the big goal? What's the outcome? What are you going to do? And I find that even my own creative work, sometimes like next step, go to the next step. You just keep going. Instead of focusing so much on the outcome or the big goal, that you don't get to live the moments that are unfolding naturally, right? It feels like it was very organic.
Yeah. I mean, we have a bigger vision for what we want the finished product to be. But along the way, if you get too caught up in, number one, it being perfect all the time, like every process has to be perfect, or if you get so caught up in what you want driving toward this end result, you remove all the spontaneity and all the magic that can happen when you're shooting something, when you're especially for a film, although I'd say this applies to any human endeavor you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
But with a film, I've said this before. I don't know if I've said this to many people, but you make a movie 3 times. You make it when you write it down, like Paul and I did. We wrote those scripts, and once we went through a process of revisions and edits and tweaks, you have the quote unquote perfect version of the movie right there in the script. And then we do the shooting, and inevitably, some things change. Like the vision that you had in your head by definition, it has to change because, say a location falls through at the last minute, which happened to us. Mm-hmm. You pivot and you get a different location. But also there's a magic that happens because you're bringing in all of your collaborators. Mm-hmm. And they bring all of their experiences, all of their histories, and some of the stories that we wrote about, they are deeply human stories, and some of our actors couldn't help but connect to different aspects of it, right? Mm-hmm. Because we've all lived, we've all laughed, we've all had pain and joy and death and struggle. So our actors bring a certain magic to these characters that on the page, we might have a vision, but it's really, when you're writing it, it's a paper doll.
Yeah.
When an actor takes over, it becomes a human being because they imbue it with all that they have. And then the last time you make your movie is when you edit it. Yeah. And it becomes a different thing again because you see things that you didn't even see on set.
Right.
Because the set is like a rat race, and you're racing to get as much done as you can while also being present and guiding the crew and guiding the actors and so forth. And even then, once the movie's done and you're finished editing it, and not all directors ever finish, like Jim Cameron is constantly doing new director's cuts of his movies. But even once you have a finished version of your movie, once an audience watches it, it becomes a different movie all over again. And it becomes a different movie for everyone who sees it.
Yeah.
Because they bring their own life experience to it.
Yeah. That is so true, which is going to lead me to the next question about the movies. But when I saw the film, the first time that I saw it at the Fringe, and that was with the 2 stories, right? I perceived it, received it a certain way, experienced it, and then I saw it again at the West Shore Theater, and I was like, I noticed more things came together. Like I just saw Sinners, and I want to go see it again, right? I'm like, yes. I saw things, I felt things, Sinners, I gotta, go see Sinners. And that's, I think that we build a relationship. The thing that's on my mind and my heart, what is a film that has inspired you? Inspired you?
Oh my goodness!
I know there's do we have another hour?
I'm gonna just stick to one because this is a filmmaker that I hope that I one day, if I don't get to work with this filmmaker, I want to meet him. And it's I went to see Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing.
Yes.
And it completely changed
yes.
the way I thought about storytelling. Even from the opening title sequence with Rosie Perez acting out all these different scenes in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood in New York City. I was like, I had never seen anything like that.
I mean, either, yeah.
I was like, what is this? Like, where is this man taking me? And I love movies that do that. And I like urban stories. I'm a city person. Like I love the way cities work. And Spike Lee always takes me into the city and lets, he allows us to eavesdrop on the lives of so many different types of people. And he was dealing with, the race issue at this time in his movies. And, that was one of the things, growing up as a black man in the inner city, I had a lot of confusing times, growing up. And I felt like he was a voice for me. So I was really inspired by Spike. And so it was Do the Right Thing for me that really made me want to, become a filmmaker or work in movies in some way. So that's mine.
I love that. And before we get to Wallace, I just have to add this, that I was an intern for Robbie Reed Humes, who did the casting for Spike Lee.
Wow.
But the reason I tried to have that internship was because that movie, I was young and it blew my mind. Yeah. And he showed us and said things that we had all seen in New York City or experienced to some level, but it was never put on TV. Yeah. Right? When people were being racist with each other and calling each other the names, and we're like, no, seeing Rosie Perez dancing. And I remember how electrifying it was when he came out. And I think he opened up a whole new avenue for people. And then when Robert Rodriguez came out, and we were like, ah! But I also, as a Latina, but I think that at that point I also realized how unfair it was. Like, one black director comes out with a movie and then suddenly everybody has to criticize and judge it. And has to be the standard, right? Yeah. Or one Latino. And I'm like, yo, there's a million white directors out there. You're not smashing them up. People were lauding him, but they were still critical. Same with Robert Rodriguez, that's Desperado, with this one, that, El Mariachi. And I'm like, can you let people breathe? Right? So I just wanted, because I was remembering. So Wallace, what was something that really...
I mean, my mind reels with possibilities, and including Spike Lee, who, for me, my favorite Spike Lee is 25th Hour.
Yeah, that's good.
And that monologue in the mirror that Ed Norton gives, where he just dresses down the whole city, and then turns his fire on himself. I just get chills even thinking about that scene.
Wow.
Oh gosh, I guess I'm going to be really super basic and obvious, but Alfred Hitchcock, and I mentioned the last time we were together, I watched Vertigo probably 150 times when I was a kid. But I also watched Rear Window a lot.
I saw it in film school.
And Rear Window, I think, probably informs Kitty Cat. Rear Window kind of informs, my love of ensemble casts. Because even though the star is obviously Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly, he creates this whole world in this New York City apartment building. You see everything through the eyes of this one guy, but you realize very quickly there's a whole world out there that he is only seeing a little glimpse of. And there's a kind of magic in the way that Rear Window is set up, where every window that you observe out the back of this apartment is another character. There's Miss Lonely Hearts, who is really struggling with loneliness. Yeah. There's the bohemian artist. There's the dancer and all of her bows, and there's the traveling salesman and his wife, who he may or may not have killed. All of these different people get their moment to shine in this film. And I think it is an exercise in empathy, because Hitchcock doesn't look down upon any of them. Even the traveling salesman, who is, spoiler alert for a movie that's 70-some years old.
If you haven't seen Rear Window, I'm sorry, you haven't seen this.
But even the traveling salesman, you can kind of understand where he's coming from. Yeah. And I appreciate how complex that film is for what is. You can watch it on a surface level and just be entertained.
Right. And I love, you both mentioned, the peeks into people's lives, that even if they're completely separate, different from us, there's some part of us, our humanity is going to connect to it, Yeah. And even just listening to both of you, so I watched that in film school, and it's funny because I was so excited, okay, so what's happening here? And I remember NYU, they were very blasé, so bored. But I will always be excited, and I think we should be excited about the things we love. Yeah. We could talk about this so much more, and I'm thinking of all the films that I always what I need as a female and a woman of, a bicultural woman, is I love movies that reflect the struggle that women have being objectified, being like judged for their sexuality, their spirituality, how our ancestral wisdom or indigenous wisdom is like maligned, right? So these type of, like White Sargasso Sea, I really loved. And then there's one that's a French one that now I don't remember, that I had suggested to you, but it was something about the Mad Woman's Ball or something. The Mad Woman.
It's on my watch list.
Right.
Yes.
It's really good. Yeah. Right. And it turns, I know, well, spoiler alert, she's actually is receiving messages from the other side, but they put her into a special place. And, watching that and being, oh my God, if I was back in that time, I would be there probably. So I love it. We could talk. I'd love to hear also for you guys to comment what are movies that like change your lives. But before we end, I'd love to hear, and these are questions I always ask on my podcast because I love to hear the answers. What are some of the ancestral stories or patterns or just things that were passed on consciously or unconsciously that you feel you had to break or transform or integrate or heal, whatever you want to use, to be able to be yourself? Like to be able to do this work that you're doing? As
an artist or just as a person, or both?
Both. Whatever you want to choose.
I needed to forgive the stuff that happened with myself and my family. And, I started excising those dark places when I worked on a play called Kill Keller, which was produced by rest in peace, Narcisse Theater Company. So I was always afraid to use my art to help fix the stuff that was broken in me. And I feel like I needed to do that. So I was in a pattern of writing really dark things, in my early work was really dark and weird. It still is a little bit. That's just my style of writing. It's very, very thought-provoking. I like to go into the interior things of human existence. So, I feel like, I had to get away from that and try to, work on things that were still, heady, but also a little lighter, like Dick.
Yeah, because I was thinking of that, and then I'm comparing it to what you're saying, and I'm like, I'm like, okay.
Although Dick is pretty deep.
It is.
It's deep, but I had to throw some of the humor in it.
Yes, it was humorous.
Even though it deals with loneliness and, not being honest with yourself and things like that. So, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did, absolutely. How about for you, Wallace? Like, what are some of the things that...
Yeah, this could be a whole podcast.
Oh, yes.
In and of itself.
Yes.
And in many ways, this is stuff that I've been grappling with in my journalism.
Right.
And like Paul, in the films that I've done. For me, one of the things I had really to struggle to get away from and define myself through is, growing up in my family, there was a tremendous amount of isolation, and there were subjects that we did not talk about, and there was a sense that like you keep it inside the home, and you don't talk about it to anyone else. You don't even talk about it inside the home. There were just subjects you just let go, and in some ways I understand it. The older I get, and the more I move through the world, the more I've experienced, I get where it was coming from, because we're talking about previous generations. A lot of my family, all of my family really, they were immigrants to America. They came here from Ireland and from Poland and from Germany. And some of them faced discrimination when they did, in the late 19th century, early 20th century. So there was a sense that they had to be locked down. They couldn't necessarily trust people who were outside of their immediate family union. But of course, when you don't talk about something, and this is a line in one of my scripts for River City Stories, if you don't talk about something, if you don't do anything about it, the problem gets worse. And so in my family, there were lots of issues of addiction and mental health and abuse that got handed down one generation to the next, in part because people didn't talk about it. And they certainly didn't seek help for it outside the home. So, I moving through the world as an adult, I try to have those difficult conversations, and I try to approach them with grace and a level of humility and kindness. But I'm not afraid to have difficult conversations, both as a person and also in my work.
I love that. And I love that you called attention to that, because I think that's prevalent in all of our backgrounds, I would say. Like, we'd be like, lavar la ropa sucia en casa, wash your dirty clothes at home. I get my ass beat for trying to talk to people like, I'm struggling at home, and then I'd get in trouble. So I totally get that. Or like the personification, I'm fine, everything's fine, nothing, no, everything's good. And now I guess finding out that vulnerability can be a strength, especially as an artist, right? Yeah. So now another question. So what
wait a minute.
Yeah. Oh,
what did you overcome?
Okay, let's talk about it. No, I love it. It turned on me. I would say so many things, but being the eldest Latina, translating everything for everyone since I'm a young age, worried about everybody, thinking about everybody else. And I was an artist at a young age, so I used to draw and paint, and then I got into music and art high school, which is the arts high school, through art. So I was always around artists, singing, dancing, performing around me. But then I picked something more I picked journalism, but then I left that too. I went into communications. I think for me it was taking on the adults. I'm going to take care of everybody in the room, which now I haven't done in a decade, by the way, or more, but still it sneaks in there, so I have to be aware of it. And the second thing I would say was all of the women, especially speaking towards the film that you're both doing, right? Or we're all in part of. What I would have to break through is all of the women in my family at some point or another were artists, and they had to stop, right? Yeah. So the thing is like my grandmother was performing, singing, dancing, then she got engaged at 18, and everybody's like, you have to stop now, because that's the streetwalkers' work, because think about 1930s, right? 1940s. My mom was a journalist in Argentina, and at some point she started to get some success. They offered her a role where she'd have to travel to LA to record once a month, like a Spanish TV thing, and nobody in the family wanted to back her. My grandmother, my dad's mom, was like, no, you had kids. And so what I kept seeing is a lot of the women in my family who were talented or gifted or wanted to be artistic in some way had to do it quietly. My mom wrote poetry in the house, shared it with us. And I think that understanding that I get to proclaim that for myself, I get to say, yeah, I'm doing improv. Every time I go do improv, I do a lot of improv. I think you've seen my posts. Every time I go, my grandmother didn't have that. Yeah. My grandma was stuck in the house.
When you're taking care of everyone else, you can't definitionally
hard to
take care of yourself.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm going. My husband might come with me. He takes pictures. He does the video. I get to play. I get to be 5 billion people and sing weird songs that you and I were on the offbeats together. We get to be crazy. We've been dancing vibrators. We've been shark and I've been a Slovak mermaid, I say to Ludmilla, we dance like this, right? I was thinking of Lisa finding the baby skull. We won't get into it, it's kind of gross. But all the different people that I get to be, there's no punishment, no one's dragging me off anywhere. Yeah. So I feel like the freedom to be a woman, a soul in a body of a woman who gets to be free and try on different realities. And there's no immediate repercussion, negative. So thank you for asking that question and so before we sign off, what is the ancestral gift that you think you're leaning into or feel you've leaned into?
You know what? I don't know where my writing gift comes from because, I just feel like there must have been, a griot in my family at some point.
Yes.
And so I feel like I've, taken that spirit and it's been instilled in me. And the wild thing is, I've been put on the spot where people are like, tell me a story. The worst thing you can do to a writer is put a writer on the spot and have them like tell you a story. It has to be something that is very organic, and
in some ways it's a gift.
It's a gift, yeah. So, but I think that's the gift that was given to me, and I'm very protective of that. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know you did this," because I don't walk around saying, "Hey, I'm a writer." Like I don't do that. Like I want my work to share that.
Yeah.
So that's the gift I think I have snatched from someone in my.
I love it. I love it. So. I feel the ancestors in the room. I love it. How about for you, Wallace?
Well, I think having this cat right here is a gift.
Xander, everyone.
Yeah. Welcome.
Yes.
For me, I think it's curiosity. Because at the core of everything I do, creatively, professionally, is a curiosity about other people and the world around me. And, I know that for whatever other faults she had, for example, my mom actively encouraged that. Not in everything. Right. There are those subjects we didn't talk about. But in terms of, encouraging me to learn about history and politics and religion, you name it. Like she actively encouraged me to learn about the world and ask tough questions and pick things apart and put them back together. And I appreciate that. And even for herself, she was a seeker her whole life. She was seeking comfort, and I don't think she ever quite found it. But, she filled our house with books about Buddhism and Taoism and you name it. She hopscotched from one religion and one spiritual tradition to another. And I think a little bit of that is in me now, in what I do, in journalism, walking into a stranger's home and asking them questions. And in film, because River City Stories, looking at the lives of very disparate people and the way that they overlap, the way that they come together and then diverge again.
I love that.
How about you?
I love that. So as I'm hearing all of this, so my family was spiritual on both sides, to the point like Catholic based, but then you'd be getting a cleanse with an egg. That's an indigenous tradition to cleanse you with an egg. And just the honoring of like space and land, like even when we got this house and we came to look at it, I talked to it and I talked to the land. I'm like, I hope you pick me. I hope they pick me. I don't know if I'm going to do a great job taking care of you the way your previous owners did, because I'm not good at that, but I will give you love. I will bring plants. I will bring love. I will bring people. I think honoring spirit. And I think over the years, I have felt that I've made people uncomfortable with my passion. Like, as I was talking about earlier, I think for a woman, especially my hair doesn't look big right now, but when it's bigger and then having a big chest and you walk in a room and you have a big spirit and you're like passionate, sometimes that's connected to lack of intelligence. Maybe not so much now, but in the past, right? I'm talking about the 90s, 2000, this pseudo intellectual, I'm going to be quiet and be, but I can be intellectual and intelligent while I'm passionate. And I think that passion keeps me curious, keeps me wanting to co-create, keeps me humble too, and keeps me willing to be a beginner in many things. Right? Because even coming to improv, it was uncomfortable for me in the beginning because I was already an expert in my business and what I do. Suddenly I'm like, oh, I'm not controlling anything. Adapting. But now I love it. Like, I love that we just show up, we never know what's going to happen, right? Yeah. So I would say leaning into the spirit, leaning into creating community. My parents fed a lot of people in their house when they were alive, and different people have different walks of life, and they were very open to that and welcoming. So they never said create your own community, but I need that, like creating family in my own way. So thank you so much. Yes. Oh my God, we could go forever. So before we close, Love to hear like one or two things. What advice would you give to people who are out there right now? Like, I want to start my podcast. I want to do a film. I want to do something. And you've been giving it throughout this interview.
Yeah.
And then just where can people find you? How can people connect with you? And where can people see River City Stories? Okay. Yeah.
All right. Some advice I would give, build a nice network of people you trust, and stick with those people. I have a nice core group of people in my orbit, like these fine people here sitting with me, and a few others that work in the film industry. Some work in education, some work in theater, and I keep those people really close. Build a good network. It's invaluable. So, and be careful. You can't have everyone. A lot of people in this industry are not out for the art. They're out for fame or I just feel like that's, find people that are artists, that would be artists if they didn't have anything. And those are the people you want to work with because they get stuff done. Yes. So I would offer that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say, the biggest thing is just start. Don't wait for the perfect conditions to come along because they won't. That's not going to happen. Mm. Now, that's not to say, like, if you have this big, grand ambition, don't start with the biggest version of your dream. Start with a small version of your dream. Have some small victories along the way, like Paul and I have had, and then build up to the bigger ambition. Regardless of what it is, if you want to write a novel, well, start by writing the first page of a short story. Mm-hmm. If you want to make a feature film, start by entering a 48-hour film competition. Most cities around the country have some form of that. Go ahead and start doing it. You don't have to wait until you have the deluxe DSLR camera in order to make movies. We've all got, I don't have it currently on me because I put it down somewhere.
You can make a movie with an
But
iPhone.
we all have phones in our pockets, whether it's an iPhone or Galaxy or whatever, that take HD video. So do a small version of what you love. Number one, it'll teach you whether you truly love it or whether it's just a passing fancy. Because sometimes when you do something, you're like, oh, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. Or maybe this isn't quite what I want.
Yes.
But if you don't do it, you won't know. So start small and just keep going. And if it's something you love, eventually you'll do it and it'll be done. And then you'll be able to move on to a new thing, a new dream that's you can't even imagine right now here in this moment. So, yeah.
I love that.
Just do it.
I love it. Just do it. Have a network of people you trust. Mm-hmm. And I would say even if you're building a business, right, if you're trying to create a business, create something, both of what you both said, and also know it's the long haul. Yeah. It's the long view. Just because people see me, they're like, oh, you're speaking. Yeah, I've been online 13 years full time, but I've been doing what I do like 20 years, right? And it takes time to be prolific. It takes time to be proficient. It takes time. And like you said that I loved, which is sometimes something's not for you. I sang in a band for a while and I was like, yeah, I did it. I'm good. I'm good now. But meanwhile, I've been doing improv now for 8 years, right? So you're going to notice what's calling you. And I would say don't compare yourself to other people. That's so big online. And the immediate gratification, you see some TikTok, they get all these follows. Okay, good. Let's not put them down. Good for them. Good for you if you got that. But the truth is that, rarely is somebody going to make it big off just like going viral with one thing. They might get some product placements. But the truth is that it's the work that we do every day with the people that we work with every day. And something else that comes to mind is, please don't bitch about where you live and say that there's nothing there, right? Like I left New York City, I came here and I was like, oh my God, I don't know anybody. And then I went to improv theater. I stayed there for a few years, growing, connecting with people. And now I have to say, like, I have so many amazing projects that I'm a part of and also creating. Then I'm like, I couldn't have done this in New York, you know what I mean? So don't think that film and theater and creation is just in LA, that it's just in Atlanta or just in New York City. You can actually create an amazing group of people anywhere, and it's really up to you. So thank you so much. And okay, so where can they find you? And it's all gonna be, the bottom of this video. in the information section.
Well, we are so excited. The first part of River City Stories has been making the rounds at our theaters in central Pennsylvania. Our next screenings are going to be in Lancaster with the fine folks at Zootropolis Cinema Stillhouse. We have 2 screenings in 2 weeks from when this is being recorded, May 16th and May 18th. Please tell all your friends, bring them out, have them support local filmmakers. And we're really proud of this thing. And you can find me on YouTube and any of just pick a platform, you'll find me. On YouTube, it's Wally Film. On Spotify, if you're listening to this podcast there, it's Cinema Double Shot.
And you can find me on Instagram at PHWroteIt. PHWroteIt. Or just put in Paul Hood. Also on Facebook, I do use Facebook a lot I know Facebook is so passe, but I'm still using it. I use it a lot. So you can find me on Facebook. Also, can I do a shameless plug?
Yeah, go for
Yes,
it.
please. That's what we're here for, shameless plug.
One of my plays, pieces, I just signed with a publisher, Next Stage Press out of Colorado. It will be out in June. So if there's any theater companies out there looking for new work, give it a read. And
seriously, this play is fantastic, and
Wallace.
it needs to find an audience out in the world. I really encourage folks to give it a read. Also, I have a website, wallyfilms.com.
Yeah, I love it. And ustedes saben dónde encontrarme, where to find me, thebizbruja.com. And for anybody who's interested in exploring like improv for training, I have improv-unleashed, and you'll see more of that shortly. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Thank you so much for being here with us. Let me know how this lands for you. Share your favorite films. Tell me what you're working on. Share it with us and follow all of us, because we're doing the work and we want to support you to do the work too.
Yes.
So, mucho amor, gracias.
All the things and be kind to each other.
Yes. Gracias.